Peace and love, you fantastic wonders of spiritual love well-being. Nathan here from Spiritual Love Well-being, and yes, you have a spiritual love well-being. And today we're going to be discussing Didymus Judas Thomas the twin and the Gospel of Thomas. Who was Didymus Judas Thomas, the twin, whose name implies the twin and also testicles? Some believe him to be the disciple of Jesus, Thomas the doubter, who doubted the risen Jesus until he seen the marks in his hands and feet. Now, in Gnostic and esoteric traditions, he's labelled as the twin brother of Jesus, or who looked and acted so much like Jesus that he was called his twin. Now, symbolically speaking, this means that everyone contains within them the higher self, that you too can be like Christ, that you can be Christ-like. That if you understand and can enact these teachings into your life, then you too are like Jesus, that you too are his brother. That this also means that you are the Son of Man, that you are your own Messiah, that you enact the will of God. So, God working for you. Now, Professor of Ancient Judaism and Christianity and biblical scholar James Tabor believes that Thomas is identified as the brother of Jesus, Jude. Now, in Christian traditions, especially those in India, we have the belief that Thomas went to India and thus was the first one to bring Christianity there, establishing a church. And this was around 52 AD, and he landed in the Missouris on the Kerala coastlines. Now, he later was stabbed to death by an angry Hindu priest with a spear around 72 AD on the 21st of December. Some legends state that he was accidentally killed, or that he was killed by a mob, or that he was killed by an angry Hindu priest and died a martyr. Now, Thomas is also associated with the Gospel of Thomas, the Book of Thomas, and also the Infancy Gospels, and some even claim him to be their author. Now, in the 3rd century AD, we also have a written work called the Acts of Thomas. In here it states that the risen Jesus appeared in the likeness of Thomas. And in the Gnostic Christian work called the Book of Thomas, it states here that Thomas was called the brother of Jesus, and also Jesus called him his twin. Now, the 3rd century prophet Mani, who started his own version of Gnostic Christianity, who was the one who started the first worldwide religion of its time, he states that during his early years at 12, he had a spiritual encounter with his divine twin. So this here is a reference of, again, being like Jesus yourself, within you, your spiritual twin, your divine spark. Now, in the Quran, it states that Jesus wasn't crucified, but someone else took his likeness. Some Muslims believe that this was Thomas, others believe it was Simon, others believe it was Judas, etc. Now, the Gospel of Thomas, to which we're mostly familiar with the Nag Hammadi version, which was the Coptic version. Now, after this discovery of the Nag Hammadi in 1945, they would realize beforehand they found several Greek fragments, which was actually also the Gospel of Thomas, but a Greek version. Now, because of the discovery of the Coptic version, they were able to reconstruct the Greek version. Now, they actually realized that the Coptic version was actually copied from an even older Greek version. Now, most scholars will date it around 50 AD, making it older than all the New Testament. Some scholars will date it around 60 AD to 70 AD, and even as late as 250 AD. Now, the Greek version was dated around 130 AD to 250 AD. Now, a lot of the other Gospels were written around, say, 60 AD, 70 AD, 80 AD, and 90 AD. Now, if this was copied from an even older copy, this would mean it could be during the time of Jesus that this was originally written, and could be, say, written by Jude, or a well-educated Christian that knew Jesus or followed Jesus, or at least knew his disciples. I believe the Gospel of Thomas contains the unedited, unfiltered words of the historical Jesus himself, and is among the first Christian writings. I also believe that if they discover the original, it would change the entire foundation of Christianity as we know it. Now, I also believe that the other Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, copied from, or at least borrowed from, the Gospel of Thomas, and definitely copied from or borrowed from other Gnostic works. Now, I mentioned this in my book, Gnosis Through the Ages. Now, not all scholars agree on the Gospel of Thomas's origins. Some believe that it's Gnostic, others believe that it's pro-Gnostic, others believe that it's Alexandrian Christianity in origin. Now, the Gnostics not only buried their own writings, but they buried other writings to protect them from the Catholic Church's burning. Now, I'm not alone in my view that the other Gospels copied from the Gospel of Thomas, or at least borrowed from it, but not everyone agrees with this. One of my favourite scholars, Dr. Price, does not agree with this. Now, I'll actually show you his opinion, which I asked him on the channel Wise as a Serpent Bible Geek, which I highly recommend for you to check out. There's always something you can learn from Dr. Robert Price.
Spiritual level of being says, what's your view on the Gospel of Thomas influencing the 4 Gospels? Well, I don't think it did. I know some people do. But in my humble opinion, the Gospel of Thomas combines some Encretite and Gnostic sayings that the writer got who knows where, with a whole mess of memory quotes from hearing the canonical Gospels read in church. It seems to me that he didn't have his own copy to consult, but quoted it as he reconstructed it from his memory. And there's sometimes one saying will lead to another. They're not numbered in the text, but generally speaking, it's sort of a grab bag of stuff, and it is immensely fascinating. I wrote a saying by saying commentary on it in my book, Holy Fable, Volume 4, and you might enjoy that. Plus, I'm doing my paraphrase of the whole darn thing.
Before anything was written, these traditions started off as oral teachings from Jesus and then passed on orally. Now, this being said, it's possible that all the Gospels were just second-hand accounts of memories, memorizing what they heard from Jesus, memorizing even further what they heard from the disciples, and even further memorizing what they heard from those who learnt from the disciples. Now, this means that there were several different factions of Christianity, several different viewpoints, different understandings and different interpretations. This is why in Gnosticism, they say that if you understand and enact the teachings of Jesus into your life, then you too are Christ-like. Several scholars believe that early Christianity was indeed very Gnostic, and if not, very aligned to Gnosticism. Now, some scholars don't agree with this. Some scholars believe that Christianity was very diverse and always was diverse. Now, Judaism itself, we can find Gnosticism in ancient Judaism, and Judaism itself was also very diverse. We had many different, several factions of Judaism. Some were worshipping different gods. Some were worshipping Yahweh, others El. Others were worshipping Yahweh and El, or even Yahweh and Asherah. So we had different versions of Judaism, just as we did several versions of Christianity. So peace and love, everyone. I love you all. Connect to all my mind and soul. Namaste.